Good afternoon, everyone. This is Matt over at Milestone Capital Growth Portfolio.com. Today is Sunday, February 21st, and I wanted to do SPY video for a longer term all the way down to the shorter term. We're going to start here with the yearly just so we can get a full picture of exactly what the market looks like, and I'm going to be using SPY for that. I think it's a very important market moving indicator to understand the full view instead of just shorter time frames. Um, Depending on what you're looking to do with your portfolio, whether you're short-term trading or investing long-term, there's many different things that you really want to evaluate, and one of those things is multiple time frames. So I'm not going to get into too much detail. I'm just going to cruise right through and give you my assessment of where we are in the long term and the short term. So here we are looking at a yearly. If you look at this, you could see here that we got a double top formed, and it really tried for 2 years to make a new high. Well, for the second year to make a new high, and it really couldn't do it. And you could see that we were outside the Bollinger Band, and now we're back inside the Bollinger Band. And this low, you made another low here, and this low from here is starting to create a path or a trend line to the downside. So by following this, you can get a picture of, okay, well, it just needs to take a break. Your relative strength index is still at 69.83, and your stow is just getting ready to cross to the downside. And then when that takes place, you could see, when you get that full cross, you could see that things really start to fall apart. So the long term, it does look like that we're going to pull back. Potentially, of course, we could take this and shoot all the way up. But if you look at our trend line here for the year, you're basically breaking into breaking that long term down uptrend line. Excuse me. So dropping it down to a longer, shorter term, we're going to look at the quarterly. You could see here the same thing. You had multiple tops here per quarter that just couldn't break through. Your relative strength index is coming down. You already crossed with the stow here, starting to head down, and it's still over. It's still over 73, almost 74 here. But you do have, your middle Bollinger Band right here. But the general trend when you're really looking at this is the same thing. If you just take candle for candle, um, you know, and start and not working with the wicks, you could see that you kind of forming a little bit of a pattern here. You have a full support right here, and you have your resistance right here. So you're really getting into this zone right here where it's going to be uh, a tight trade zone for a little while before a decision is finally made. But you have that upper trend line to the downside, and then using the wicks here, though, it's pretty important to understand that we're making new lows per quarter. It's not like this wick held support, and that was it. But we do have a triple bottom in place. That's potentially good, but we do have some resistance up ahead. Based on what I see for these two indicators using the Stowe and the RSI, we are getting a reset here. Your middle Bollinger Band sitting right around here at 169.69 at this point for the quarterly. But until this level is cracked again, or this level is cracked again, we're pretty much just in this tight little triangle trade zone, which is probably about a 20%. Let's see if we can figure that out. 10%, 8% trade zone. Let's get this, try and get it as close as we can. Yeah, 5%. 5% trade zone right now. But the general trend in these longer term time frames is telling you that, we're going to go for a little bit of a reset. This was a reset right down to the middle line here on this dip. And, when you were overexposed here, you also came down to this area here. So you're looking at the 50 to be pretty much the area. And this was lower Bollinger Band. This was lower Bollinger Band. Now, if this is lower Bollinger Band, you're talking about 109.78. Is that going to work? Well, look at your Stowe. Your Stowe is going to come in for a full reset. It always does. Okay, it's just that simple. So it's just a matter of time before something snaps, in my opinion, that we start breaking low. Now, your extension from here to here is a little bit different here. This is a big percent. It's a 50% move. Here to here is a 50% move. Now, the difference between this upper Bollinger Band and this lower Bollinger Band is pretty epic. Okay, that's 50%. I apologize for that. I thought it was a lot more. So it's really a 50% move to the downside from where it is right now. So if this was the actual top, which it probably is, then you can understand we're going to get sets of candles like this, and that's what I've been explaining for quite some time. But these candles are going to be much more aggressive than these were because our extension is so much further. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on, and this is the quarterly now that we're looking at. So we're in that trade zone there. Now let's drop it down to a weekly. Weekly, you've come into a bounce, and it's just that simple. Um, the way I want to look at this personally is, you could see that your stow is getting ready to, either be level or cross to the upside for a shorter term bounce, okay? And that's basically what we're doing. We hit here, here, and this was perfect bottom if you were using this because you had this support here with this candle, okay? And then you had bring that over. Okay, so you had this support here, but you're in that aggressive downtrend, and it's really pushing your Bollinger Bands to the downside also. Okay, so your middle Bollinger Band sitting here, potentially she could go back to 200 on this bounce if that's going to take place. But here's what you need to know too on your weekly. You have this downtrend line right here that's in place. So it's just a matter of getting through some areas. But we were oversold. RSI's at 43 now on the weekly. So, I mean, there's still room to go down, of course. And if this is a broken pattern, then we should start moving down. But you get outside the Bollinger Band here, 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 and here. And it always bounces back inside. So that's why I said that 193. And as we drop it down to a daily time frame, from this weekly, you can see something a little bit different. You get this beautiful pattern where it's you hit the low, which was a perfect trend line from history of this one here and this one here and then back down here, and then you had that big bounce right here. Okay, beautiful bounce off of the 180, trying to protect it again, but it was so outside the Bollinger Band that it had to come back in. And then once we gapped up over the middle Bollinger Band, it was pretty identifiable at the beginning to create this pattern of here it was that high, here was that low. So that means here's your box trade now. Okay, so typically what happens in a box trade, you create a double top or a higher low or a lower high. So it's either going to be a lower high or a higher low. So what this actually formed right here with this double top is something that is pointing to the downside. Okay, it didn't break through this, so this is actually going to be resistance at this point. So by using this wick and this wick, you could see that it never made it up to the top of this box or break out of that box. So before the bulls have to make a decision here on what's going to take place, or the bears are going to have full control again. You've had a great move here with this from 180 all the way back up to 193, and that's when it stopped. Okay, but you are forming this consolidation box, and you do have many gaps up here that need to be filled. But there's going to be a determining factor now of what's going to take place. But we're still starting to get a little bit cranked up. Your relative strength index is at 52, so that right now it's mid trade and undecided. But typically when you hit the top of this box, what you're going to do is come back down and either find a higher low or come back down to the bottom side of this box. Okay, and that's the way I like to look at it, and that's what works for me, just from history and pattern history that I have watched. So, a couple areas that you need to watch that's going to be a big support here is going to be your middle Bollinger Band. Okay, your middle Bollinger Band is going to be very important. The 189.40. If that cracks, then I would be all over this to short it, to go lower. But until that breaks on lower time frames, you'll see the rotation take place in when I get down to lower time frames. But for now, you can see that middle Bollinger Band is going to be support, and plus you have this little gap right here that needs to get filled, which we're going to mark out now when we get down to the hourly, because you can see a little bit better. You're pretty much pinching right here, but you have these extensions to the downside and these gaps right here. They just couldn't get into it. But on the hourly, you see we broke underneath this middle Bollinger Band, okay? And it tried 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours to get over that middle Bollinger Band, and it just couldn't do it. Okay, and here's that trend line in. Here's the upper Bollinger Band, so that's really going to be a challenge. Your relative strength index is at 60, so it's a little bit higher, and your STO is trying to decide on what to do from here. And granted, this is only the hourly, but you want to predict and plan what you're looking at for the week. So, here's a other gap right here that I like. So you got a 186 and you have a 189. So one side or the other is going to break to the downside or the upside. But based on my relative strength index and this middle Bollinger Band not breaking, I would assume that we're going to come down and challenge some of these areas, a nice push down. So we'll have to see about that. And now when we get down to the, I'll go down to the 30-minute. You can see here you are on the 30-minute. You did break back over, which is very bullish. So you could see potentially we could pop up here on a gap up tomorrow morning, 61 points, and then start to reverse to the downside. But it's mid-trade, so it's undecided on what's going to do. So tomorrow morning, what I'm looking at here is if we gap down to this area, then I do anticipate us coming up. Okay, I definitely anticipate us coming up. Excuse me. If we gap up here to the upper Bollinger Band, then I say we're going to continue to the downside and challenge this 189.82. Okay, something else, coming into Friday that's going to be very important. This past Friday, you came into the resistance here. Okay, and then it pulled right back down. It could not snap over it in the last, in the last 2 hours. So what we need to make sure that's going to happen here is if we gap up, we understand that the market's probably going to pull all the way back down and start dropping to the 189. If we gap down to this area, we're going to be oversold in the shorter term time periods, and then we're going to probably come up and challenge this 193 again. Okay, but we're going to have to get through this trend line first. So this is what I'm looking at for SPY short term and long term. Long term, we look broken, and it needs a nice little reset. Short term, we have a nice move last week, a beautiful move. Short weeks usually work that way when you have a 4-day trade week. So it was great anticipation from our side and planning that 193 from the 183 back in the consolidation box. So, all right, so we'll have to see what happens tomorrow. I will do a follow-up video tomorrow night. Good luck tomorrow in the market. And if you'd like to join us, we'll be in live chat, milestonecapitalgrowthportfolio.com. It is free, and we'll be running this all day long. All right, just join as a silver member. Have yourself a fantastic day, everyone.